Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, fans out there. This is Battlefield 1. In today's CTE update video, we're going to be talking about a number of changes and features coming to Battlefield 1 currently being trialed on the CTE. We're going to be talking about the upcoming Premium Friends initiative, launching of course today with Battlefest. We're also going to be talking about coming platoons and the first trial version of that currently being tested on the CTE. Other topics that we're going to be touching on include conquest scoring changes, changes to AA, as well as specifically the fighter trench variant, as well as of course some further changes to the way grenades work and damage, as well as of course some map balancing and technical netcode improvements. With that being said, let's get straight into the first topic, what I think is the most exciting of the ones we'll be talking about today, and that is Premium Friends. Essentially now, if you have a party with one or more premium members in it, everybody, independent of whether or not they're premium or own any DLC, will be able to join them on a DLC map. That is to say, if you want to play Verdun Heights Operations, your friend has premium or has the DLC, that is to say you don't, you can now play that map with them. Now you won't have access to the new weapons, the new gadgets, the new vehicles, and you won't actually get any points for playing that round. The XP will be saved, and if you at any point in time buy premium or buy the DLC, you will get all that earned XP back, but for now you won't get anything. It is, however, certainly a great way of keeping maps populated, and while I am a premium member and as such haven't faced any difficulties with lacking content since the DLCs come out, I do understand that this should at least enable a number of people who are not so hot about the whole leveling up system to at least enjoy Battlefield 1's extra content to a certain degree, and it should help of course keep maps populated and keep premium members who have paid for them happy as well, because there's nothing more frustrating than paying a bunch of money for additional DLC and then not actually going to be able to use it because after 2, 3, 4 weeks nobody's actually playing the maps anymore. With that being said, currently this is a trial happening during Battlefest. However, the developers have to a certain extent indicated that they want to go in this direction more permanently, so when this trial is over, assuming that everything goes well, there'll be tweaks and hopefully then this will actually become a permanent part of the way DLCs operate in Battlefield 1. With that being said, let's move on to the second exciting news regarding additions coming to Battlefield 1. While the Premium Friends is currently active, Platoons are not there yet, but currently being trialed on the CTE, and if you're interested in this, I highly recommend you go and try them out there. So Platoons are in the game, you can create them, you can join them, you can make them and manage them with your friends. No news there. Let's run over the basics of what we have up to now. This is a skeleton system, that is to say more to come in the future. This is just basically setting up the basics. Up to now they're limited to 100 players. DICE is looking at possibly extending this limit further. You can be a part of up to 10 platoons, but only at one point actually represent one at any given time. We'll get into what that means in just a minute. There is currently 4 different ranks in a platoon. General, which is essentially equivalent to Battlefield 4's founder rank. Colonel, which is essentially second in line and has much the same powers as the founder or general does, just can't quite disband the entire organization. And then of course you have lieutenant and private for anybody who's kind of got the base rank in your platoon. A number of features regarding platoons are obviously being able to show that kind of platoon servers, organizing yourselves, playing with platoon members, seeing who's online, who's where, having a name, a tag, description, a joint and shared emblem, as well as there's currently 3 different platoon access types, that is to say open, anybody can join who he wants, apply to join, which means you get as founder or colonel or lieutenant can then accept you into your platoon, and closed, which means as of now nobody can join. I don't believe there's currently an invite to platoon option, but DICE is obviously working on introducing that relatively soon. One of the highlights of the platoon system for me, besides it just existing in the first place, is actually the so-called representation function and what that means in practice, especially on conquest game modes. Now, while it's obvious that you can take over the platoon emblem and this will actually replace your own emblem when you play with your platoon and you represent your platoon, what's even cooler is if your platoon contributes the majority of the work to capturing a flag, actually on that flag, on the pole, there'll be kind of a small version of your emblem to represent your platoon actually doing the work, which means if you've got an excellent group of friends and you're an excellent platoon and you're rocking the game for your team will actually more or less notice that your team, your platoon, that is to say, is taking the majority of the flags and helping them win, which I just thought was a nifty little feature and a way to make platoons a little bit more valuable, even without that actually being any material value. Moving on then from platoons to the conquest scoring system, another hotly debated and hotly anticipated change. Points are down for capturing and conquest. Flat out, the maximum amount of points you can get, this is not including squad orders, is down from 1,250 points. This would be the maximum amount of points you could get if you first neutralize the flag and then capture it. In total, this has gone down to 800 points. And the way they've done this is essentially slash the neutralization bonus from a max of 250 to 100 and the capture bonus from 500 points all the way drastically down to 100 points. They have added to somewhat compensate for this 4 additional conquest ticks, each obviously giving you 25 points, making up 100 points. Nevertheless, conquest capture points are down, emphasizing more actually playing the game, killing people, moving on to the next capture point, then waiting for that final tick of the flag to get your 500 bonus point. Another change that has happened is that now you only have to actually be on the flag for 30% of the time to get your final bonus. That is to say, if you leave the flag and come back just before it's over, you should still be able to get your 100 point bonus, even if it's not as important because it's not worth as much as it used to be. This, by the way, is down from 50%, so a noticeable change. I think we may actually also see some changes regarding if you actually have to be on the flag to get the bonus in the future. DICE hasn't necessarily indicated this, but it has been suggested by a number of people in the forums, and DICE has responded positively to this suggestion, which means in future we may actually see you getting the cap bonus even if you're not on the point when the point is finally capped because you've done enough work. But that is on my part actually speculation for now. Another popular area of change is anti-aircraft and fighters, and I know a lot of people, mainly those who obviously don't fly, have been looking for changes to the dominance of fighters in Battlefield 1, and there's justification for that as well. They are currently simply too strong. Now, there's been changes to the AA, as well as some infantry weaponry and the fighters themselves. Starting off then with the AA, essentially damage has simply gone up. They haven't reintroduced the necessary moving of the plane around that we had pre this last actual official patch, and this is not CTE, but the actual patch that we got with They Shall Not Pass, but they've increased its splash damage. That is to say, the multiplier, which determines how much damage you get, for the fighter has gone up from 0.7 to 0.8, for the attack plane has gone up from 0.75 to 0.9, and in the case of the bomber, this has gone up from 0.3125 to 0.375. This isn't a massive change, unless of course you're looking at the attack plane where it's quite significant, but it should slightly strengthen the AA against enemy aircraft, which is, in my opinion, a welcome change. They've also increased the AA blast radius from 4 to 6 meters, essentially meaning your aim doesn't have to be as good anymore to hit the enemy plane you're trying to shoot at. I personally am not such a fan of this because this is rewarding poor aim. You may think differently. It certainly should be easier now to use the AA, or it will be easier if the CTE patch goes live in the main game, to use the AA against enemy targets, especially of course fighters, because they are of course smaller and thus more difficult to hit. Fighter darts have also seen a nerf, a small nerf on the reload time. That is to say, you're going to need 15 seconds instead of 12 seconds before you're going to be able to fire them off again, but massively actually in the damage department, where their blast damage has gone down from 20 to 16.7, and most importantly, their blast radius has gone down from 3 to all the way down to 1.5 meters, and there's been the removal completely of initial impact damage. That is to say, the darts used to do damage when you actually hit your target head on, plus blast damage, the damage from the explosion effects essentially. Now there's no longer any impact damage, as unrealistic this may seem. There's only blast damage, explosive damage, which means not only is the damage down by the 20 to 16.7 factor, but a whole nother area of damage has been removed. We'll have to see if this is not a bit too much, because this is not only reducing the trench fighter's darts capabilities requiring better aim, requiring more of your darts to actually hit, and you not being able to use them as often as previously. However, it's certainly good to see DICE finally addressing the imbalance that currently exists between infantry and especially the fighter aircraft, but I'd actually argue aircraft more generally. Regarding then this combat between infantry and aircraft, there's also been an increase to damage for sniper rifles, specifically when firing at fighters, attack planes, etc. There is not too much here, but in the case of fighters, it's actually 20%. It's a small difference, but it should make especially those K bullets even more effective now against enemy aircraft. With that being said, then let's move on to grenades, another interesting area of changes that we've gotten in this patch. Well, of course, last time around where we had ammo 2.0, the changes were more profound. There's still some noteworthy changes, and I think some that the community has been asking for a very long time. First and foremost, here we've got auto blast radius from the frag being decreased from 7 to 6.3. For the impact mini and light anti-tank grenade, this has gone down from 6 to 5.6. excellent change. Even better than that is the added universal delay when throwing grenades of 0.3 seconds, which means every single grenade you throw, independent of its time, now will take 0.3 seconds longer essentially to throw, which is great because it's going to reduce the amount of in-combat grenade spam, which is one of the main complaints the community has had with the grenade mechanics as of now. Furthermore, grenades no longer auto-resupply. That is to say, you no longer passively regenerate grenades. You are always going to have to seek out an ammo box if you want your grenade back. Another big complaint that the community has had, arguably on some quite dubious grounds in some cases, such as immersion, but nevertheless, there is valid reason for these changes. There's also been changes to the amount of smoke grenades players can carry. This is once more up from 1 back to the original 2, and grenades no longer collide with friendlies within 10 meters. A fantastic change in my opinion. Yes, it's unrealistic. Yes, it's going to stop some of the funny fail moments where you chuck a grenade at your friend's head and then find it in your own lap exploding, but it's just so annoying when one of those pesky blueberry teammates decides to, yes, strafe or stand in front of you suddenly just when you've pulled the pin on your grenade, and you end up having your grenade back in your face and it of course blowing up. With that being said, grenades have once more seen a nerf. Some would argue we're slowly going too far. I think this is in the right direction, addressing some of the remaining problems that have been there with grenades. The increased or too large blast radius, this now being decreased, is fantastic, as well as the increase essentially into what is both explosive times minutely for the grenades and especially throw times in the 0.3 base delay. That's great to avoid that in-combat grenade spam, which makes it more effective, currently at least in the base game, to throw a frag at your enemy instead of using your SMG or LMG to take them down. With grenades being covered, let's move on to the last major segment in today's video then, map balancing. There's a lot here to cover and I'm only going to be covering what is essentially the most interesting parts. As per usual, I'll be leaving all the sources for this news down below in the comments. There's 3 links here, 2 on the Battlefield 1 live Reddit, 1 on the Battlefield news site. So if you want more details, especially regarding the changes that have been made to Rush, the DLC Rush maps, feel free to head down below and find the information for yourself there. The main changes regarding most of players' experiences of the DLC maps is Verdun Heights operations. There's been some buffing for the attacking team. That is to say, tickets have gone up from 250 for the attackers to 350. The howitzer, that is essentially the OP mortar that the attackers have in their base, is available after 5 minutes already on the first wave, no longer only on the second and third waves. There's also been some craters added to the fields near the forest, essentially giving the attackers a little bit more cover to hide behind and stop the defenders sniping them essentially in their base, hopefully. There's been some spawn tweaks and reduction in elite kit spawning times for Verdun Heights more widely for the map generally, that is to say for all game modes, including operations, including conquest. And there's been many, as already mentioned, changes to Rush DLC maps regarding spawns, regarding how many planes and tanks are on the map, as well as some MCOM locations. If you want the full detail on that, feel free to head down below in the description. You'll find all the information you're looking for. With that being said, there's been the usual technical netcode improvements because, of course, the last CTE patch introduced a number of new netcode bugs. These should, for the majority at least, be ironed out now altogether, and we should be back to the relatively good and reliable technical stance that we had previous to this last CTE update. With all that being said though, I'd be interested to hear your opinion on these currently in the CTE being trial changes. If you have any strong opinions, don't just leave them down below in the comments here. Head over to the Battlefield 1 CTE live Reddit as well and let DICE know about why you think this is a great or bad change. I, for my part, am very excited about a number of these changes, including the grenade changes, including to a certain extent the anti-AA and fighter balance changes. I think the conquest balance changes are great, and of course the introduction of platoons and premium friends are 2 great directions for DICE to be heading in. I'm surprised they could get it past the EA managers, which I'm sure were not too happy about DICE in essence giving part of their DLCs away for free. With all that being said, as said, leave your opinions down below in the comments and your future video suggestions for future Battlefield 1 videos. But with all that being said, I'd like to thank you very much for watching and hope to see you in the next Battlefield 1 video.